Welcome to Prairie Fire Lines, the show where we spark conversations about prescribed fire and its role in conserving Canada's prairie grasslands. I'm Kat Zenz, your host and Communications and Outreach Officer for the Canadian Prairies Prescribed Fire Exchange. We work with partners across Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba to bring fire back to the land safely, effectively, and with respect for the Indigenous traditions that have guided grassland stewardship for generations. We acknowledge that the prairie provinces that we work on are situated on Treaties 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and the homeland of the Métis. Each episode, you'll hear from people in the fire world about how prescribed fire works, why it matters, and the many ways it helps our prairie ecosystems thrive. So cozy up by the fireplace. This is Prairie Fire Lines, where we keep the conversation burning. Hello everyone, and welcome to a very, very special episode of Prairie Fire Lines. I'm here again with my supervisor, Renny Grilz.
Hi, Kat.
We're back for another interview. Actually, kind of, because what we are about to present to you is a special, previously unreleased, previously unheard podcast that was not...
It was not shared.
This podcast was not shared to the public. So it was initially done by Matt Shanklin, who...
He's with the Iowa Department of Natural Resources, and he came up for our Canadian Prairies TREX in 2023 as one of the trainers with Kody Wohlers with Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation. And we recorded the day before TREX started, so the Sunday evening, we sat down for an hour talking about what the TREX is, what happened the previous year, and what the next year or what this year was going to look like. And so this was after our kickoff incident management team meeting as we launched into the first week of TREX. So this first episode was recorded at the Meewasin shop compound the night before TREX, and it was a 1 hour discussion between Matt Shanklin, Kody Wohlers, and myself. So it's unscripted, unedited, raw. So you'll hear a lot of unique sounds in the background and interruptions, but it's real live. And so I hope you enjoy this episode.
Yes. So this is the pre-TREX review that we're about to listen to. And there's also going to be a second episode that's going to come out shortly after. That is going to be a detailed overview of the TREX afterwards. And it's a 3-hour long episode, and it's going to be on the way. The trainers are going to Iowa from Saskatchewan. It's on the drive home, and it's very casual, but it's also very detailed and thorough. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that, and hope you really enjoy this episode as well.
Welcome to the podcast that we don't know what it's called. Maybe we'll call it that. So we are here in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan with two fellers. Go ahead.
Renny Grilz.
Who are you?
I'm a Resource Management Officer with Meewasin Valley Authority in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada.
Perfect.
Kody Wohlers, Les Hills Land Stewardship Director with the Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation in Western Iowa.
Perfect. And you guys don't know who I am because I haven't ever said it yet. So I'm Matt Shanklin, and the unofficial host of whatever this is podcast, and our work. Well, we'll let you not know what I do for work right now. So what we're doing, we are in Canada. Me and Kody came up here to visit Renny and crew for our, I'm going to say it wrong, so just lay it out.
Canadian Prairies Prescribed Fire Exchange Training Exchange.
Perfect.
TREX.
Prairie TREX.
Prairie TREX.
Up in the North Country, having some fun. Yeah, we're here to burn. Me and Kody, we're here as, lead instructors?
Lead instructors is what we're invited to do.
Yep, and we are grateful for the invitation to come up. We're missing out on Denyar. Did I say it right?
Yep.
I can't pronounce it in my mind, but
It's Dinyar. Yep.
he also works for.
He works for Canadian Prairies Prescribed Fire Exchange
Yep.
as the fire coordinator.
Perfect, and he is also based out of Saskatoon.
Yes, he is.
All righty. He had to go to bed. Poor guy.
Yeah,
Poor
it's,
guy.
it's past his bedtime.
Yeah.
So start of the week. Here we are. We're going to talk about what we got going on this week, what we expect to happen. Maybe people coming in, anything about the fire we got going on. I don't know. What else do you guys think would be important to talk about? This is going to be a precursor, right? We're going to come back with part 2 at the end of the week, kind of sum it up, see how it worked, see how it happened. Yeah. Any boys want to start with something?
Yeah, I can kick it off. Some of the exciting parts with me coming up, this is my second year up here. Last year was the first event, and it's going to be very exciting this year, knowing that we have 45 participants representing 20 different agencies from across multiple different provinces of Canada, and seeing that group mesh, a lot of new faces, a lot of new firefighters with very little experience, but also firefighters with ample experience, years of experience and good fire experience. So watching those crews, those people develop throughout the week, building skills, is some of the exciting part that I always like to see in an event like this. And then, our task is building that confidence within those people to build fire capacity and try to get more fire on the landscape within our northern Great Prairies.
Absolutely. Renny, how about you want to give a little recap, maybe some of the successes last year and maybe where the fire culture is up here in, the provinces?
Yeah. So here in the Canadian Prairie provinces, sort of prescribed fire has its sort of ebbs and flows kind of thing. Here in Saskatoon, where I am, back in about 30 years ago, prescribed fire was starting to be used by the University of Saskatchewan, and there's a few partners that started burning as well for land management, including my agency. But it was all guys show up with flannel shirts and sneakers kind of thing, and we'd go light the prairie in the spring and maybe in the fall, just when we had an ample time, and no sense of training, no sense of, because there was nothing available. Our PPE we had none because there wasn't any available on the market either. And we just walked out there with homemade flappers and water packs, and that's how we burnt. And so, but over the years, some of the agencies started burning more and more, and like my agency's been burning for 30 years. And we just sort of continued that culture of fire here in the Saskatoon region. Other provinces like Alberta, back about 30 years ago too, they started doing fire, and then they got shut down, and they hadn't brought fire back into that landscape up until about last year through our work. And then in the province of Manitoba around Winnipeg, they've been using fire for about 30 years as well. So it's real ebbs and flows, just depends on the individual who's involved, and keep that agency sort of the fire lit kind of thing. So here in Saskatoon, my group is actually, whenever we burn, we always try to invite multiple partners out, multiple groups. Hey, we're burning today. You want to come out and join us? And so we sort of kept that going. So in terms of TREX last year, it was our first year. We brought together partners from all across Western Canada. We had 40 people. Brought Kody up and from Iowa, and Brad Elder up from Kansas. And we had our first TREX. And so we burnt on 5 different agency lands and about 280 some acres, and really great success, and just sort of built on the momentum. Built off that success, we did a TREX in southern Manitoba this past early May, I guess, and then now we're doing it back here again in Saskatoon.
Awesome. Kody, before we come into what we're looking at this year, stuff that you had last year that you experienced, just from sitting in the room today, first time for me being up here, we know that I see that there's a lot of excitement going into this week. People are still riding on the high from last year and maybe the other Prairie TREX that happened. They're down over in Manitoba, right? Yep. And I don't know, what do you see from last year and then coming into this year so far?
So coming off of last year, we built on the week as it went, and it really, we kind of hit that peak, on that Thursday, Friday of a 5-day event. And I think people want to tap onto that this year. That's some of these people, that was the last fire they saw. So that I think they're hoping to pick this right back up, where we finished off. Great group of people last year. I'm hoping for more of the same this year. And it's that people teaching people, building personal skills, not just fire line skills, but decision-making skills, communication skills.
Yep.
Just those intangibles that make a good employee a great employee down the road, and build on a program, not just from a fire standpoint, but from a stewardship standpoint. Yep. And, you can really tell that the people up here, they want to make a difference for the land. They understand the ecology benefit, the ecosystem benefit from fire, and that's why they want to get back on the landscape to fight some of the invasives that they're dealing with up here, which is no different than what we're dealing with in the States, with using fire as a tool to manage some of our invasives and manage that ecosystem.
Absolutely. All right, I'm going to pause it real quick and make sure these connections are legit, because you guys hear a buzz, or is it just me? No, now it went away?
No.
I don't know, hold on. Play. All righty. So, all's fun, all's good. I'm excited to be up here, so I maybe need to jump back just the fact. So I got to hear all the stories from last year with Kody and Brad, right?
Yeah.
Renny and Carrie and Alex.
Yeah, Alex.
Got to come down to our neck of the woods and burn with us last year, and just meeting with them was super exciting and super fun. Hoping they had good experiences, which we know they did because we keep bothering them about it. But we had fun there, and Kody was looking for somebody to go with, right? Because Brad couldn't come this year, or wasn't. I don't know if he was available or not, but I bothered Kody, and I think I pressured him into bringing me. Yeah. He didn't have a choice. I was coming in a suitcase. It didn't matter. So we were hoping to bring a couple more guys, but unfortunately that didn't work out. That would have been great to stack the truck all the way full, so we could have really brought some more people with us. But I'm pretty pumped just to get on that fire line with these people that don't have that experience. I really enjoy it back home, getting people to hold the torch for the first time, getting people to, understand the process, understand something that I'm still not great at, but I really like to push me while pushing others, is like that pace thing that we've improved greatly. I think even in our unit level in the last 5 years, we've stepped it up, thought about bigger picture, how we're going to get it done, but understanding we don't have to stand around and wonder what's happening when we think, all right, well, is it worth just sitting here, or can we go to the bigger, make the unit bigger or not? I mean, I shouldn't maybe address it as acres, right? I mean, pacing yourself across the scale of the day, what can you accomplish? What can we get out of it all in one scale? So that's going to be super fun. Getting things rolling tomorrow. It'll be a big shovel, big hoist in the morning to get it out the door. But I guess Renny, what are you're looking forward to, or things you see on like the participant side coming in this year?
Yeah, we got 14 newbies who've never been on the fire line, but a lot of them have been talking about fire in their professional lives, whether as a consultant or educator, or with some of the local colleges, or even with school. With the local public school division. And so bringing them onto that fire line, see fire and experience fire, will give them that great opportunity. Now, when they go and talk about fire, they know what it's about, how the process works, and brings some legitimacy to what they're talking about. And so that's going to be really exciting. We also have a couple of pasture managers that are working with local community pasture associations that want to bring fire back into their ranches or their pastures because of woody shrub encroachment and woody tree encroachment. And so that's our first step into getting into those groups to bring fire back into those ranches or those pastures. So yeah, it's going to be exciting to see these guys and gals join up tomorrow and learn, experience, and get a feel for fire. And then for the returnees, looking at that development of them, right? And so one of the things I think we noticed last year was by the end of the week, everyone was walking a lot taller and a lot more fast and more, pride in their step as well, right? And just looking at my crew in the last couple of days, trying to prepare for this, I was really noticing that that step they were really a lot more, okay, we need to do this, and, just way well more organized as well. So, it's just that professional development, I think. And then also building that support for fire. We got so many, 20 different agencies coming to participate. Like, that's tremendous, right? And here in the Saskatoon region, we have, usually 5 agencies working together. So all of a sudden you're bringing 20 together. That's a huge plus.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things coming from our area of Western Iowa, we have a strong culture in prescribed fire.
Absolutely.
And that culture's been there for 20 plus years of partners working together routinely to get fire on the landscape as that management tool to benefit the landscape. And what I'm looking forward to as well this year, as much as I was last year, was how can we set things up for success for our participants? Not just in this event, but set those people up so when they go back to their home units, they know how to set themselves up for success for their day-to-day operations and their fires that they put on the ground, whether it be the small things of burn unit design, adequate fire break prep, all the way down to, do I have the right personnel? Do I have the right equipment? And the small tactics of being able to communicate efficiently, effectively, back and forth. We don't want to set people up to fail ever. So set them up with the best tools we can to make people successful. And like Renny just said, when you have success, it breeds success. So that's why people had that greater step by the end of last year is, they were more confident. They weren't seeing a lot of fire maybe previously in their careers. They finally got to see it. They got more comfortable with it. And then that confidence builds with every repetition you get.
Absolutely.
So, that's where we're going to be at this week, is trying to get people opportunities and repetitions as much as we can. We're obviously very weather dependent with whatever Mother Nature gives us as far as these 5 days that are preset, basically a year in advance. So we'll do whatever we can as far as active live fire on the ground, but we are also pre-loading some non-burn days. If we have high winds, if we have moisture, whatever we might have, if we don't have the opportunity to burn live fire, we'll still have opportunities to get people repetitions, get them those opportunities they need to breed more success.
Put them in situations that they could fall into on the fire line, even if we aren't physically on the fire line.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, and the risk is we are in Prairie, Canada, middle of October. We could be having a blizzard tomorrow, right? So, it's sort of finding that sweet spot in timing in weather conditions kind of thing. So window's looking decent for this week, which is great. We timed it really perfect last year.
Right.
We finished up burning on the Friday. Saturday was a beautiful day. Sunday we had a blizzard, right? So hopefully we have the same weather conditions this year. So
yeah,
awesome. We're going to take a quick pause for our sponsor, my wife, so I can tell her good night. All right.
I think maybe you hitting on, what's the overall goal of year number 2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my goal is to bigger and better, right? And just push ourselves even more. So like last year, like my agency, we did a lot of 10-acre burn units, right? And because that's 5-6 acres was our normal size, right? So this year we set up a whole bunch of 40-acre burn units, right? So push ourselves that little extra, right? And then some of the other agencies adding more burn units as well, right? And so just sort of pushing ourselves to get bigger and bigger, slowly, not too fast. And for myself too is just watching people grow in their positions, right? And I have a fairly young crew that works with me at my agency, and just watching them develop their skill set and become better future leaders in prescribed fire wherever they end up, right? And I think for me that's the biggest. And I think too, as we do more burns here in the Saskatoon region, is expanding that culture and acceptance of fire, right? And have Saskatoon as an epicenter here in Saskatchewan, but then we can start burning in other regions of the province as well, right? So, get more fires down in southern Saskatchewan, get more fires in different parts of the province, and build that culture of acceptance of fire like what you guys have in Iowa, right? And, we've been a small enclave here in Saskatoon for 30 years burning. this will help us expand that culture, I think. So,
And then I guess for those that do unfortunately choose to listen to us, they're probably wondering, why are you guys up burning in Canada? Because Canada's been on fire all of 2023. So maybe give a note on that, where the actual fires are in comparison to where we are.
Yeah. So where we are in Canada right now is we're about 4 hours north of the Montana-North Dakota border, and a very similar habitat of what you find in eastern Montana, western North Dakota. So a lot of open grasslands. We're sort of on the edge of the forest kind of thing.
In that prairie pothole region.
In the prairie pothole region, yeah. So actually, probably a lot of your followers will know where the prairie we're part of the prairie potholes up here.
The duck factory.
The duck factory, yeah, we're part of the duck factory up here. And so where the big fire situation was this year in Canada was up in the Northwest Territories, up in Yellowknife was the capital. They evacuated the city of 20,000 people, moved them out of the territory and moved them into other provinces. British Columbia, northern British Columbia, central British Columbia, and northern Alberta province. So that's all boreal forest country.
Yep.
And that area has, here in Canada, we have a history of fire suppression for about the last 120 years. Mm-hmm. And these boreal forest ecosystems traditionally would have burnt, 80, 90 years, right? And so they were hitting these climax communities, tinder dry, middle of a drought, and then also some of the, especially in British Columbia, they were experiencing mountain pine beetle infestations. Oh, yeah. So a lot of their pine forests were dying because of that, the pine beetle, and so too tinder crisp, right? And so natural part of the ecosystem, but when you suppress it for too long, you end up with a powder keg. And really, in this part of Saskatchewan, we're seeing that as well, right? We are seeing a lot of grass fires happening in the Saskatoon region every spring. Usually, the local municipality outside the city throws on fire bans, usually around April 15th every year, because of that. A lot of grasslands that haven't been either grazed or burned for years, right? And so you have that really high fire risk. So part of the work that we're trying to do is not just for ecological benefits, but also reducing that wildland fire risk within the region.
Absolutely. I guess coming up here, I didn't know what I was getting into. I mean, I know what the prairie pothole region is, right? So it does extend down barely into Iowa, but we definitely got to see a lot of the different countryside. The one thing that really, the things that blew my mind were the agriculture side of things. Obviously, we know corn and beans. That's all we know in Iowa. And then obviously we're getting up in that small grain farming again up here.
Yep.
The things that Kody pointed out to me on the way up were the wheat fields, the combine heads, the harvesters, the swaths were just massive. I don't know how wide they are.
Yeah. Up to 40 to 60 feet wide. Yep.
It just looked out, standing in comparison to what, that ain't no 12-row header for corn. But, right. And then of course we still had that grassland component mixed into that agriculture. It was less fragmented than I assumed it would be. Okay. Yep. Don't get me wrong; there's still plenty of fragmentation of the natural landscape. But and then me and Kody, we've had many discussions on the way up. Like, what would this look like when it was all grass? Yeah. And I don't know what it would have been like. I mean, that was just, it's one field as far as you can see of ag. So
well, like right now, the estimate in Saskatchewan, there's only about 14% of our grasslands left. So most of it concentrated in the southwest corner of the province, bordering with the Montana and Alberta. And so, we've lost a lot of our grasslands over the last 120 years, right? And so agriculture is king in this province. Our provincial symbol is the wheat, right? We are known as the breadbasket of the world, right? And so wheat was the dominant grain. Now canola has surpassed it because it's a high-value crop. But we're also getting a lot of barley, lots of oats, lots of flax, but we're also getting to more lentils, field peas as well. So really diversified agricultural or annual cropping. Historically, up to about the early 80s, we were a lot more mixed farms in the prairies, right? So everyone had some cows, everyone had some pasture, everyone was doing small field cropping. But now the average grain producer is running 20,000 acres, whereas like my family is, I come from a grain farming family. We farmed I think we were at 480 acres, and then we expanded to 640 acres, right? And we were small farmers, right? And we just couldn't keep up with the Joneses anymore, right? Because we weren't big enough. And so that's why my dad retired from grain farming. But then my uncle and my cousin took over kind of thing, and they're farming, 15,000 acres, right? So big farms. And
it's a lot of darn acres to go from 640 to 15,000.
Yeah, and then you start, as the equipment gets bigger, like you were saying that, you see these big swaths, right? You go with an air seeder that's 40 to 60 feet wide. You want to knock down those corners of grass and potholes and everything like that. So we've lost a lot of prairie. And then with any prairie that's left, because of the loss of, not as much cattle industry anymore either, you start getting that woody shrub encroachment. So, trembling aspen and moving in, and especially in this region, and other shrubs starting to move in. Fortunately, we don't have the eastern red cedar that you have in your region. Hopefully we never get that.
I don't wish that upon anybody.
Yeah, last year was my first time I ever saw. I was down in Nebraska, in the low hills in Nebraska, seeing eastern red cedar, and it just blew my mind. And then when I went down to visit you guys in April of this year, and seeing in your low hills in Iowa, just phenomenal that how invasive that tree is, right? And a lot of people say, "Oh, don't worry, we're too cold up here in Canada," right? But you know what? With I've seen in my 30 years, I've seen shifts in vegetation communities, and I think it's it'll show up here. So.
Yep.
And maybe before we get back into the fire and the TREX week that we're actually in, if you don't mind, Renny, you come from an agriculture background. What got you into the conservation side of things?
Yeah, it was sort of quite funny. I grew up on the family farm kind of thing, and I had bush right beside us, aspen forest, right in our farmyard, right? And so just grew up in that pothole country, ducks all the time and see deer and everything. And my uncle actually had worked for Ducks Unlimited Canada kind of thing, and I don't know, sort of fell into that. And my original plan was to become a geologist and look for uranium in northern Saskatchewan, and I'd be rich right now and retired. And when I was 16 years old, I got a job at the University of Saskatchewan working with the grassland ecologist here, Dr. Jim Romo. And he's the guy that started doing fire in the Saskatoon region. And he came up from Missoula, Montana, and started managing a prairie, a parcel of grassland that the University of Saskatchewan owns that we burnt last year as part of TREX. And I got on my first prescribed fire when I was 16. I was out there in sneakers and blue jeans and a flannel shirt, but that's where I got the fire bug, hey? And so I went into conservation there. And I've been fortunate. I've been able to work across 3 prairie provinces in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, working for groups like Ducks Unlimited Canada and Nature Conservancy of Canada. When I was in Manitoba with ducks, they were doing lots of burning in that area. And so I had an opportunity to experience burning in that tall grass prairie. And then when I moved to Alberta, I always talked about using fire. And, they had that reluctance of fire in that region. And this last year, I got to go back to one of the properties that I worked on a conservation easement on about 12 years earlier. And we did a prescribed fire on about 10 acres. And I'm going, okay, took me 12 years to get there, but we got there, right? And so yeah, it's seeing these successes, and I'm looking at it as the long game, right, for conservation, right? You can go in there and you want to try and make change overnight, but you have to look at it as a long game, and we're at that cusp here on fire. There's a lot of interest, and we're very fortunate. We had a donor. The name of the donation, the foundation is the Weston Family Foundation. They actually own a chain of grocery stores across Canada, and they gave us the money to start the fire exchange here in the prairies. And I've worked with them for over 20 years in different jobs as a major contributor, and they're really passionate, and they really wanted us to try and get some change on this landscape and try and preserve these grasslands. And that's why we're all here. They helped us create this, the fire exchange, and they gave us money to pull together these TREXs. So yeah, it's been phenomenal.
Perfect. And then I guess, Kody, I know you awfully well, but nobody else does that could listen. So maybe don't go as extreme as you could, but maybe give a brief synopsis of your pretty well diverse fire background.
Yeah. So I got my first fire bug in 2003. Was on my first prescribed fire back in the hills, and it's kind of addicting. I'm a student of fire. I thoroughly enjoy watching fire behavior, watch how it interacts with both the terrain, the the flora, the fauna, and then seeing those fire effects, what worked, what didn't work, how to change it, how to manipulate it. And, that's some of the stuff that really intrigued me about fire. And then it's just fun. It becomes a brotherhood, a group thing that people get excited about, because fire it's just something that people can come together and thoroughly enjoy. So, being in Les Hills with the fire partners, I've been coordinating the Cooperative Burn Week for the last 8 years, and working with a group of passionate people with a common goal, much like they are up here in Canada, where they're wanting to expand that common goal. Like Renny said, if everybody wants to burn more, it might take 10 years, it might take 12 years to get to a representative level where they really, really want to be. But you got to start somewhere. I mean, it took the better part of 20 years in the Les Hills to fully get where we're at now, where people interact virtually every day during burn season to get fire on the landscape. Another thing that I'm excited about up here is a big change from last year to this year is they're starting to develop a curriculum for a potential qualification system. Absolutely. Which is not in place right now in Canada. So that's a giant step just to even have a couple of different levels of qualification system, some kind of a standard that everybody can be on the same page and move forward
down in
with.
The States, right? We got the NWCG. Now I'll butcher it. NWCG, what's it stand for?
National Wildland Coordinating Group.
There you go.
Yep.
And then, of course, at state level throughout the entire U.S., especially in prescribed fire, everybody has their own systems or didn't have any. Like Iowa, we have implemented our new system here recently for prescribed fire. So that's cool that coming up here, I didn't know what we were looking at.
Yep.
So
Yep. Yeah, and like for ourselves here in Canada, like I have never really taken any professional training on prescribed fire because there was just no access to courses, right? And so, here in Canada, if you want to try and get into some of these courses, our equivalent of the NWCG, unless you're working for a federal agency that deals with wildland fire or a provincial agency that deals with wildland fire, access is really difficult to get, right? And so, one of the things we did was we built a sort of an introductory course with the University of Saskatchewan, just equivalent to I think it's the 130 class in the States,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And just we when we started the fire exchange, we sort of reached out and everyone started sharing their materials with us, right? And so now at least we have a basic introductory course to grassland fire, right? And we've had over 200 people take it, and that's actually the first course available in Prairie Canada for wildland or for grassland fire, prescribed fire, and which is, I guess, crazy. Like you thought there would have been something a lot sooner, right? And
yeah. Well, I'm good at interrupting. So, Kody, did I cut you off? Is there anything else you wanted to touch on that?
No, I mean, a little bit more about my background is mine is a blend of Western wildland fire detail, but very specialized in prescribed fire. I've built some equipment that is very specific to Great Plains Prairie, specific prescribed fire. Mm-hmm. And, it's great to go across the country, see different places, see different fuel models, how they burn, how they react to fire. But the prairies of North America present some of the biggest challenges. We have some of the same challenges, in different organizations, different areas of Iowa that they do up here in Canada, where the culture is just not there. The acceptance of smoke in the air, knowing where that smoke's going, keeping it out of neighborhoods, and then the ongoing urban interface. So people moving out into places where there never used to be houses, the loss of habitat, all that comes into play with fire. So, like Renny, things have changed a lot over the last 20 years that I've seen. But we're really hitting on all cylinders right now in Western Iowa, at least with our fire partners. And it's been a privilege to be asked to come up here the last 2 years and kind of help this organization get an event off the ground. Mm-hmm. And then, kind of they're using our model to base their model going forward of, we don't all follow the same qualification system or have a qualification system, but how can we get together to burn safely and effectively across those different organizational backgrounds?
Yeah.
And that's huge. That's a big step for a lot of organizations, and getting that organizational buy-in is just as huge as building those people that they're sending.
Absolutely. And there ain't nothing shameless about this. So Kody, as you said, built some equipment. We're going to plug it, the old Wohlers Fire Equipment program, and we'll just brag on him. He did get one of these units built for the old Renny over here.
Yep.
So we got it on site, and it's gonna bust it out this week.
Yeah, it'll be on its maiden voyage, hopefully tomorrow.
Yep,
So
and it's gonna keep everything in the box, and we're not gonna test its limits at all.
Yep.
No, that's playing there.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things too is, I look back even 3 years ago when we did prescribed fire, it was the water pack on your back and a flapper in your hand, right? And
Yep.
you burnt based on that, right? And then we started moving to maybe quads with a sprayer, and then UTVs with a rancher unit with a water tank and a pump kind of thing. So,
Yep.
watching that evolution of our fire programs up here has been, within the last 5 years has been actually, we've gone almost light years, right? And then,
Yeah.
Been a big difference.
Yeah.
I mean, even short term in our neck of the woods, I mean, the way engines are being, or slip-in units or tanks are being built, and
Right.
is changed significantly. I mean, I don't even know how quick it's developed, but
Yeah, and like we talked on the way up, it's no different than adding one single piece of equipment like a skid loader to an operation for mowing or clearing trees or something. I mean, it's just a huge boost.
Turns one man's effectiveness. One person, he's going to be more effective. Covering more ground, being more impactful, right? I mean, your hours and your time go a lot farther.
Yeah.
Right. And when you add those key pieces of equipment, it makes things more efficient, more productive, and you can just cover more acres. You can cover more ground.
And I started realizing I'm getting too old to carry the 50-pound water pack, right? So I used to be the young guy carrying the water pack all day for 8 hours at a time, right? And I'm starting to get too old to do that. So
I ain't old, and I don't like doing that either. So props to you. I'll let you do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I guess we keep coming back into the week, obviously, because that's what we're here for. I guess everybody, if I have some thoughts, I'll throw them out there too. I'll start, I guess. So coming into this, right, we spent today's Sunday, day 0.5. We got everybody, the incident management team together. We did a lot of planning today. Yep. I feel currently like we're in a pretty good spot coming in tomorrow with a lot of people coming in. It's always going to be hectic on day one. We know that. We've experienced it at Les Hills Cooperative Burn Week. It doesn't matter how hard you plan, how much you do, you can't account for everything. Yep. And you can never account for the human factor. So you could be like me and forget your helmet at home and all that. And so somebody's going to have to step in and take care of you. So that's here nor there. But, I thought it seems to me, and you guys can comment as you see fit, of course, it seems to me like the management team, there was good work together today. Yep. There was difference of opinions on some things, understanding, hard for me coming in and adjusting to terminology, right? Yep. What we call things. And I guess that'll long term, if we do get some sort of standardization of the terms, right? Yep. The squads or the crews.
Squads versus crew versus
End of the day, that really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, we're training first, fire on the ground second. Terminology can go 30th on the list for all I care. Yeah. But as long as everybody understands what's going on. But I think everybody's got a good feel. There seemed to be good communication at the table. Mm-hmm. I thought. Yeah. There was some times where somebody needed to step forward, and somebody did to take a shot. That's not even close to what it was. Take lead. There's maybe some indecisiveness or something, and maybe that comes with discomfort or the early stages of the management team. I know back at our management team is twice as big.
We had 18 people for this year's, and I would plug on that too is, it's an undertaking for somebody to be on the planning team. Mm-hmm. The great thing about, I saw a big difference this year with this team of people, delegating and those people being accepting of taking on some responsibility. Yeah. So, because that takes a lot of the workload, spreads that workload off of other people. So, you can focus on a specific portion of the event rather than having, one or two people really take the reins on the entire thing.
Yep, Renny doesn't have to coordinate everything top to bottom, left to
Right.
right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, and colleague Dinier commented about that tonight too. He felt like he didn't do as much to prep for this, right? But a lot of it was delegated out to other people, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
Yep. And that's, a lot of the people on the planning team are key people for their organizations. So that's building their capacity for when they go home of more planning, more background, more precision in their logistics of when they're planning for a burn season or an event or something like that. Because I think the hope is for these events to be more popular across the Canadian provinces in the future, and
not have to take the time from, it wouldn't be feasible, right? I know Renny would want to go, but take Renny and Dinyar and, everybody, like those core people that are helping with this one, be like, all right, all 6 of you people have to go to Alberta, and all 6 of you have to go over to Manitoba for this week.
Yeah.
And if you can build that confidence in the abilities or the skill set of the people that would be running them, right, you don't need that whole 14-person team. You can break it down to 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And you can have fire on the ground in multiple places at once, and be an effective, nationwide.
Yeah. Well, and you look what's happening in the States, right? With all the TREXs and cooperative burn weeks and all the, burn associations as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And seeing those models and how many people are burning together at the same time, right? And I think this is going to build us towards that, right? And too, all the work that you guys have done in the States, right? It took you guys 20 years to build it up. Now we can walk in, learn from you guys, and maybe shorten that timeline instead of 20 years, moving into 10, 12 years, right? Or even sooner, right? So
Yeah.
Yep. And even this year, we're trying to build some redundancy within your team of having, key people with trainees, people to kind of be in their hip pocket to learn the specifics to whatever that task is or whatever that specialized area on the team is. That's something we've been implementing there in the Les Hills at our cooperative burn week. And, it pays dividends, especially if, people that can't make it to an event or, sick, out of town, whatever it might be. You have somebody that can back up and fill those shoes, and it just builds on that capacity overall within a general region.
But one thing I thought was kind of interesting in a good way, it was very cool that when we were sitting there kind of doing the division breakouts and then trying to decide who's going to be your crew leader and stuff like that for the week, just outside looking in, like in our week, it's like, well, we all know each other, we know this, and you guys know each other, and you're like, all right, we know this person has the capacity to do this, and we know this person has maybe mentioned in the past that they'd like to do it, and unfortunately they weren't here, so they're going to get thrown into it.
Yep.
But if they're uncomfortable, whatever, I'm sure they'll speak up and we can make adjustments. But letting people's supervisors, they were speaking up for their employees. A lot of the time it just seems like, I don't know if it's everywhere, but there's situations where people they don't speak up for their people. They're just like, yeah, they work for me, they'll just do whatever you tell them, but don't worry about it. But no, I heard all right, this gal or this guy, they're going to want to do this, or even if they don't, we know they have the skill set to grow upon it. And that was kind of cool listening to those, maybe they don't get compliments face to face, but if I can figure out who they are, I'm telling them.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, that was something really, really awesome on our outside looking in. So.
Yeah. Well, and too, we got a lot of young people joining us with TREX, right? Either this will be their second year of TREX or their first year. And, young, right, in their careers, right, or young conservationists, biologists, and building their capacities now, so that when they get as in their 40s and early 50s, they've had that influence on.
That's a long time away for some of us.
Yeah, well, not for me. Try like a year and a half.
Oh,
but,
wait a second.
but then they can spread that word, right? If they could have influence on 20 people in their career, right, and then just look at that compound effect, right? So,
one of my people that I currently work with, she calls that, what does she call it? The ripple effect?
Yeah, the ripple effect.
Or something. Yep. And she comes into our unit recently to start working for us, and I've had a lot of people really push it into me, as long as you can make somebody effective and understand the concept, or that's not the right wording, but you teach them.
Yep.
It doesn't matter where they go, and don't look at it I've had people in the past be like, well, why would I take my time to train you and spend my money and my hours on you because you're just going to leave me and go to the next place?
Yeah.
And I've had a lot other people, wiser in my mind, that I've great respect for, say it doesn't matter where they go, as long as you can make them, think the right way, do the right type of management, be science-based, conservation-minded. If they're being effective wherever they go, they're going to teach that to those people, and then it'll be just this bigger blanket of, nationwide or even worldwide level, effective, good, high-quality work across the, in our field that is starving for, in my mind, it's starving for, people that are willing to do the right things and not just go with what we've always done for the last 100 years.
Yeah.
But,
Right. No, I agree with you. That's been a big part of my philosophy my entire career. Is I've had lots of technicians work with me, a lot of summer students that have worked with me over the years, and just watching their careers grow, right, and the influence they're having now, right, and quite a few of them are surpassing me in their careers, right, and but seeing that influence that they're making, right, on the landscape, and the influence, whether they're doing government policy, whether at the provincial, federal, or civic level, or land management, right? It's it's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, no doubt. One of my roles up here is as lead instructor, and I've kind of talked to Matt about this on the way up. Is we want people to get comfortable, and then we want to push them that extra percent. Really stretch people another 10% out of their comfort zone, knowing that within this event there's enough people, equipment, expertise that you have a safety net. Even though you're going to be nervous, that's where you learn the best. If you're always comfortable, you're never really pushing yourself mentally to really think through the whole process or expand your knowledge. So, keep pushing yourself, whether it's on a day-to-day basis, on an event basis. That's some of my challenges to people is reach out to people, learn new people, work with new people. All those things that can really expand you for a more well-rounded professionalism.
Absolutely. I do think there is that component of fire too that's like that when you get pushed and you get put into those uncomfortable situations at your level of experience or something, like learning to make the decisions when you have some sort of stress component, when there's something that is not going wrong, but like something that you're not quite sure how to address and how to do it. It make those critical decision-making moments that you develop in that situation are always going to help you down the line. I mean, I hear about it a lot in like the structural side of things, like the fire service, like high stress environments. You need to be able to, calm yourself, think, make good decisions, because it literally could cost you your life. And I don't think that, I do think that translates directly into prescribed fire, because one wrong move, you could have a pretty catastrophic situation. And if all of those bad stars align, it wouldn't take much, right? I mean, we mitigate, we spend a lot of time planning to not have that stuff happen. But if you build those people up and make them comfortable, if something does go wrong, they're ready to react. They're ready to tell, command whatever the right word is for the situation they're in, and be effective.
Yep. And to me, it's no different than anybody that's in athletics. You want to practice how you play. And this is an opportunity for practice on a live level. The more opportunities, the more reps you have, the more serious you take it, the further it's going to take you in your career when you are put in that hot seat where you are the lone burn boss, with your own crew, on your own unit. And somebody once told me, you're never going to exceed what your basic experience level is in that high stress environment. So, when stuff's really hitting the fan or something goes wrong, you're never going to exceed what that slide in your mind once was, something you've seen before. So the more slides you can get in your head of, I had this circumstance here, I saw this there,
this is how we could have attacked it, or this is what we could have done better.
Yep.
And since you experienced it, you're ready the next time.
Yep. And the other neat thing about this, an event like this is you're going to see a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different ways to do the same thing, but everybody might have their own little twist to it. And taking just little bits and pieces. I took a lot of stuff home from this last year. And I'm sure Renny, he's been in fire a long time. He grabbed stuff both from last year within his own event, as well as coming to Iowa and seeing stuff in the same, little bit different landscape, but the same fuel models. Just because of how people operate on a different level. one of the big differences for me coming up here last year is, I'm burning anywhere from 70, 90 burn units a year.
Yep.
And coming up here, that's just not the culture up here. A good season up here is, less than 10.
Yep, less than 10's a good year.
Less than 10 is a pretty good year.
Yeah.
So, it takes me, a burn unit 2, 3, or 4 every season to kind of knock the rust off, get that comfort level back.
Get back in your rhythm.
Get back in that rhythm. Up here, they really have to be on their game on burn 1. So maybe some of that stuff is, maybe they needed to do some mock fires leading up to the burn season, do some trial runs so that when they do have actual live fire on the ground, they've got some of that rust already knocked off.
Yeah.
Because, they just don't get the opportunities up here.
Yeah.
Smaller burn windows, different fuel model, different culture, but very much the same importance of work. And maybe even more important since it hasn't had that fire on it for such a long time.
Absolutely. One thing I'm really interested in this week is not just your fire window that you have for implementing fire across your year, but I'm really interested in our fire window in the day.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we're farther north.
Yeah.
Our daylight window is much less than it even is. We have a small window even to do our fall burns, like in November down in our neck of the woods. Like, we got to get it on the ground. We got to get going because that humidity is going to come up and the oak leaves and stuff aren't going to burn. So I'm interested to see how that works in the operational standpoint of, like, we got a big day to start tomorrow, right?
Yep.
And it's going to be a lift, and we're going to get out the door, and it's going to be successful and a great day. But I really want to know where that finish line is going to be tomorrow.
Yeah. And like right now, middle of October, we're at about 11 hours of daylight, right? Sunrise is about 7:30, sunsets a little bit after 6, right? And so, and we could have frost overnight, right? And so, you're looking at only about 6 hours of burn time, right? So, so try and get acres off, between darkness and humidity, is a pretty challenge. But what the last few years, what we've been finding in this region is fall is our better time to burn. Just less winds, weather cooperates more, versus in the spring, we're finding really windy conditions every spring. So, our weather patterns have been shifting the last few years, and so we've having to really adjust our burning programs, right? So traditionally it was always spring, maybe end of March as the snow melts, get between the snow drifts into April, into the first part of May, and now we're, snow, sometimes sticks around to the middle of April, and then, boom, we turn into 25 degrees Celsius overnight, and then fire bans come on, right? So our cycles have been shifting up here. So, is it going to shift back? I don't know, but we have to adjust, right? So
adapt to what you have.
Yeah. And we've talked about doing green season burns. Our grasslands are a cool season grassland. We have very limited amount of warm season grasses other than blue grama, the short grass, but everything else is cool season. So you don't want to burn too late in the spring because you don't want to knock out those cool seasons unless you're going after those invasives like brome grass or bluegrasses, right? So
I haven't even thought about that, what the dominant grass type is up here. Mm-hmm. Cool season obviously makes sense for your ecoregion and stuff like that, but interesting.
And our warm seasons are short, right? Our tallest warm season grass is little blue stem, right? So, and for you guys, you would call that a mixed grass, right? So,
Yeah, and this has nothing to do with the burn week, and this is something I've been pondering on. We're talking about getting the grazers back involved, wanting them to implement fire for their woody encroachment. But is what fire been used or thought about being used up here to stimulate your grass component so that forage is more there for your grazers?
Yeah. And some of the work that we're doing with the fire exchange is we have a fire science officer that's now working with us, Dr. Roy Vera, and he's been looking at the literature. And what we're finding is we don't get the same response that you do down in your area where you increase production within a year, right, of your grasslands.
Yep.
It takes about 3 to 4 years to get that production back, but the amount of the nutrition of the grass that regrows is a higher nutrition quality, a higher quality, even though again it compensates for that lower productivity. So traditionally, it always had been if your grasslands burn, you can't graze it for 2 or 3 years. That was sort of what the sort of the standing policy was, right? It was, if fire comes through, can't graze it for 2 or 3 years. Now the research that Dr. Vera and Dr. Lamb are looking at is, maybe we can start grazing these within that first year. Productivity's down, but productivity's down, but nutrition is up, and so might be an effective tool.
So the nutrition side of things similar to back home, right?
Similar to back home.
Just the stimulation of the seed set and stuff like that is not as intense.
The amount of biomass and production just takes longer because of how far north we are.
Yeah.
Growing windows are shorter. Yeah.
Growing windows shorter. Also, not as much moisture as well. Like our average precipitation here in the Saskatoon region is about 16 inches during the growing season. So, and that's on a really good year. Last few years, it's been less than that. So you don't have the same productivity, right? So
the other thing, and I keep coming back to the incident management team because that's all I've known so far, right? This is the first day here. Besides the fact I've learned that chicken waffles are delicious, and I already knew I liked poutine, but I just emphasized how wonderful that was.
Yeah.
But incident management team wise, I do think it's very good and different, but like it's very interesting, and I think it's important that you do have, Roy, whatever you just said his last name was.
Yeah, Roy Vera.
Yeah, Dr. Vera, and then Dr. Lamb, on a part of this. It's not just us fire practitioners that are like, and I know those guys burn.
Yeah.
Then they want to burn for the research, but it's interesting having even more perspective that in the stuff that we might not look at. And I know a challenge in our neck of the woods, at least for me, it's like, we work directly with our entomologists and our in all of our multi-species, our inventory people. I can't even tell you what their diversity programs for bugs and for herps and anything, and like everybody's got an opinion how it needs to be done, and it's nice to have those people in the room that are doing the research, saying like, well, if you do it now, you might hurt this, but if you do it then, you might hurt this. But we all have to come together and compromise to understand that you will you're going to impact something. There's negative effects. It's inevitable. What's your trade-off? Is it the smaller acres on these specific sites where, you have these things, or, we know in our neck of the woods, we have a lot of fire adapted species, right? They understand. And Chafee would kill me, but there's this one moth, I believe, that I can't tell you the name. Like half the hatch comes out in the spring.
Yep.
And
the other buck moth.
Yep. There you go.
Yep.
He'd just be strangling me right now because I couldn't remember. The other half comes later.
Yeah.
So that's adapted to fire naturally. But anyways, I thought that was cool having those guys in the room. First off, willingness to be on the fire line, and willingness to talk with you guys, work with you guys on what's good, bad, indifferent, out there. So.
Yeah. Well, and we're seeing the spin-off too with other researchers with University of Saskatchewan, University of Manitoba, University of Alberta, wanting to piggyback onto the work that we're doing with fire and doing other research projects, like you said, the entomologists, and wanting to look at that, right? And we've just had that lack of fire on this landscape to study it, right? So we know it was a fire-dependent ecosystem. We know the Indigenous communities here in the prairies use fire as a management tool. In southern Alberta, there were Indigenous communities called the Blackfoot, right? And they used fire tremendously on the landscape to manipulate bison herds. And for, to bring bison into the spring pasture after burning in the fall, right? So, we know it happened, but we've lost that culture of fire over the last 120 years. So, trying to, bring that back and then start studying it and see what those impacts are, right? So
I think that's a fight all over North America, right?
Yep.
Getting fire back on the ground where it should be and doing it the right way. And I don't necessarily know if anybody knows what the right way is, but we need to. We're working towards it in a positive direction. So, all right. Well, I think we could continue to talk for absolutely ever on this. It is 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
And we have to start in the morning.
Yep.
So any, just quick final thoughts on going into the week? Anything you have to say?
Yep. I got one quick question for Renny. We're planning a big day for tomorrow. And Renny made the comment that, it potentially could be the biggest burn unit you guys have pulled off. For your organization. How exciting are you for throughout your career to get to this point and know that, hey, tomorrow could be the biggest one we've done. That's a landmark for an organization.
Yeah, that is a landmark for an organization, and actually for my career as well, right? And also I'm not the burn boss, right? So I've been the burn boss for years, right? And now I'm standing back and I'm being the instant commander and letting two of my colleagues be burn boss, right, on my sites. And, it's a little nerve wracking, but I trust them. I know they went through TREX last year. They have the skill, they have the knowledge. We have great trainers there in their back pocket helping them. And, it's very exciting, and, if I wouldn't have gone down to Iowa last spring just to see how you guys do it, I may have not agreed to this, but just seeing how you guys operate and how you guys work and how you guys can step back and trust the team, that really built my confidence as well. And it's going to be a game changer, right? And hopefully the weather conditions fall in right and winds are the right direction, and we'll watch a team gel on the first day. So
Absolutely
awesome. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
I'm super excited. I'm glad Division Danger got the draw on the big unit.
Yeah.
So I'm pumped to work Dale and the rest of the crew and meet those guys and see what we can make out of some firefighters this week. And I didn't say it earlier, but one of my biggest things is I feel like I learned more every burn from the people that have never seen fire, the beginners. I seem to they point out and they ask the questions of the things that we may get complacent on that we already thought we knew or we just forget about. And I think that's really important, is keeping their thoughts in the game and don't discount anybody's opinion, because you're missing something. It's a guarantee. So
and they're looking at it through innocent eyes is how I would put it. Just like a new child, they're seeing things for the first time. So they're catching a lot of the stuff that we take for granted, good and bad. They don't have any bad habits yet. They don't have any good habits yet necessarily. So teaching those people right from the start is critical for their careers and where they end up as far as their mechanism and our fire world.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, thank you, gentlemen. This is thanks for the 16-hour drive up. So
16, we'll call it
16-ish.
Yeah, should have been 20, but he made 16.
Little grilling on the border, and we made it through. Nobody took anything from us. So awesome. Well, this is gonna be a good week. The hope is at the end of the week we'll run another one of these, and maybe we catch ourselves on a good day where we get out early and we do a midweek update and get some new faces on here. We only got like 1.5 more mics. I got 5, but I don't know if the 5th one works. But we'll see what happens. So, all right. Good night.
Thanks so much for listening to this very special episode of Prairie Fire Lines. Stay tuned for the next one, as there's going to be an in-depth 3-hour-long discussion between Renny, Kody, and Matt about everything that went down at the TREX, how every burn went, the procedures that they went through. It's going to be very in-depth and very thorough, and it's going to be very worthwhile to listen, so make sure to stay tuned. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe to Prairie Fire Lines on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow the Canadian Prairies Prescribed Fire Exchange on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, or visit our website at grasslandfire.ca to stay updated on all things prescribed fire in the prairies. Huge thank you goes out to the Weston's Prairie Grassland Initiative for making this project possible, and to all of you for listening. Until next time, stay curious about the power of prescribed fire. This is Prairie Fire Lines, where we keep the conversation burning. And I'm your host, Kat Zenz, signing off.